Saruman was able to basically have such a large contingent of possibly 10,000 Uruks. It doesn't really make much sense unless he did have his own one ring. Well, ring. We'll call it one ring.
I mean, I guess if we were talking about One Rings, if like because I've played like Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor,
I
because
love
you
those
work
games,
with
by
the
the way.
spirit of. Sorry.
Yeah, I 100%ed both. The second game is a
Yeah.
hard one to 100%. Man, the late game
Uh,
grind is real, but I love that game.
I just hate after that, I'll just say this. I hate Celebrimbor.
He's a dick in that game. Yeah, he's a real dick in the game. In the books, he's a
Like,
very sympathetic character.
no, in the game, you're like, nah. Because in the aftermath, right? But he actually also doesn't get to go back to Valinor in spirit because he is also a descendant of the House of Feanor.
Of course. But I mean, everybody who
But
crafts things is, right? So it's kind of,
yeah,
yeah.
but it's you got to say, right, like the way that because Talian's intent, he succumbed, right, to the
Yes.
rape, but his intention was genuinely noble. He just wanted to delay the the arrival so that Gondor has a few more decades to prepare itself. So the guy definitely is a great one, but yeah.
But back to your question, why Sauron over Morgoth? Morgoth is almost comical in how he loses because of it's really stupid stuff. Whereas Sauron, for all the things that you can point out as his faults, masterful strategy. Waits, very patient guy. He's extremely patient. He was able to defeat Numenor through patience. He was able
Yeah,
to divide all of his
and
enemies through patience. Yeah.
not to mention Numenor was so powerful in the Second Age that I think when Sauron declared himself the king of the earth, that really pissed off the king of
Yeah.
Numenor.
But I mean, he was
And
doing
they
that to
pretty
piss him
much,
off. Yeah.
yeah, but they pretty much like marched through uh, into Mordor, like just slaughtering everything. They just like, the way they describe it is like, oh yeah, they don't like, have like a long battle of attrition. They were like, they just are smashing their way through.
Yeah. If you read how the Numenoreans fight, by the way, it's the Second Age stuff. We shouldn't jump into this. They're
Yeah.
8 to 9 feet tall. They're
That's
giants
superhumans.
that are said to have weapons that simply outrange the orcs so much the orcs can't even get above their shields to fight back. So they can't even contest them. They're just gods, basically beating orcs down. Anyways, I don't want to get into this.
Yeah,
The
let's not.
show The Rings of Power is garbage. And one of the dumbest things the show does is they have the Numenoreans when they come over the regular size of everybody else. It's such a glaring issue with anyways, I hate that show so goddamn much. Anyway, I'm not
Yeah,
getting
I
away.
gotta get it because you think of the Numenoreans, you think of like these really epic soldiers who are very powerful and noble, and that's how they're described. And even like the men of Gondor we see in the Third Age in the movies, they're the
Nothing compared to
descendants.
them. Yeah.
No, but they are even still much stronger than any other
Of the men, yes.
man of the race of man. And each one of them is supposed to be like over 6.5 feet tall or something like that. Because I know I'm just digressing a little bit, but I remember this one passage which talked about when 100 knights of Arnor came under Prince Imrahil to defend Minas Tirith. Power and prowess was described. It felt like, yeah, they're not sending like 100 guys. It's like an army of 40, 50,000 men marching down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's kind of like a way to kind of like, I guess, quantify. But yeah, let's not get into the Rings of
Yeah.
Power. I've not
But by the
watched
way,
it. I've
we
seen
actually
clips.
we,
Yeah.
we glossed over. You did have a question at the beginning that I never got to about Ungoliant. So I
Yeah.
just want to quickly, because that one actually, people are fascinated by that. I actually made a YouTube video before I was a Pacific War channel on this on what is she? Everyone asks, what is she? It's very confusing, and Tolkien's notes contradict each other. So to give people just the basics, Tolkien at one point writes that she is a being akin to the others, just like Melkor, and that she is just another Ainur that is corrupted by him, and that she kind of willingly joins him on their ventures, like when they destroy the trees and that. And then she ultimately betrays him, and she seems to be more powerful than him. But again, he's Morgoth. He's weakened himself, so he falls victim to her, and his Balrogs have to come protect his ass while he's crying like a little girl. As yeah,
Yeah, that's actually a pretty much good way because I think she bit his hand pretty hard, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
When to get one of the two Silmarils,
It is.
and
He is a comical character if you think about it. He's very funny, but she beats him. But there is I forget what book it is. There's a very bizarre passage, and it's thrown away. It's not in the Silmarillion because it doesn't make sense. Where she is amongst other beings that he's corrupted, and they're all hiding in a cave and they're talking, and that alludes to the idea that she is one of the valor, I guess you call it. Like she could be one of the strongest for all we know, but she comes from this void, right? So in the Silmarillion, Tolkien, well, it's Christopher Tolkien, gets rid of that aspect of the story, and he basically just says she literally comes from darkness itself, from the void outside of Arda, and
it's,
manifests.
I like some people have also called it like the true. It's like an incarnation beyond.
Yes,
Some people are saying like she's probably in terms of power would kind of almost be like well above any of the Valar and the Ainur.
Lovecraftian, basically. She's
Yeah,
like a Lovecraftian horror. Yeah, she's outside of what we call like our realm, right?
yeah.
She's something else, and I don't
Suppose
even like it because I find it's very bizarre in the grand scheme of things. But people now are so obsessed with that idea that if she is this other Lovecraftian being, that she's actually the counter to what's his name,
Iluvatar.
Tom Bombadil. So
Oh,
there's this
oh yeah. Actually,
hilarious
that's
fan
true.
theory. Yeah, there's a hilarious fan theory that Tom
Yeah, I've heard of
Bombadil
that.
is like the opposite of her, and that Tom Bombadil might be a Iluvatar or whatever. That Tom Bombadil. Oh, here's a really funny fan theory. Tom Bombadil and his wife are reincarnated versions of Melkor and Ungoliant. Weirdest fan theory out there.
Oh God.
That
Okay. I.
their eternal punishment for their actions are to live out these really merry, cheery lives in Arda. It's a wild one, but for
I'm just gonna remember like Tom Bombadil is just a guy who just has no care for anything except happiness for himself.
but you do have to love that Tolkien randomly writes, "Oh yeah, we could give the ring to Tom Bombadil," but he would just stop caring about it and throw it away because he's so
Yeah, should
powerful. He's this weird
he's
being that's all encompassing.
yeah, but then it kind of begs to differ. Like, is he so powerful? And one thing I would just say, if Ungoliant is like supposed to be like a kind of like dark power from beyond the realm, way more powerful than any of the Valar, how could she just get smacked by the Balrogs? Because ultimately the Balrogs are still Maia, and
Yeah, and but
Maia we know while they're powerful, the difference between a Valar and a Maia is quite a big one.
yeah. And that again, it brings up this issue. We don't have a concrete answer. Could she have just been a corrupted Meyer? That's kind of the easiest answer, isn't it? Because it gives her a strength level that makes sense. The thing is, how was she able to overwhelm Morgoth, even though he is weakened? He is, he should be able to at least knock out a Meyer, but he succumbs to her. She is a very bizarre case. Many people have done tons of books, and people have done YouTube videos, like me included, on this. It is strange. What's even stranger is if you look into her daughter, Shelob. Shelob seems to inhabit the characteristics of a Meyer also. Doesn't make much sense. And the game, that we're talking about, they presented her to be this shapeshifter who goes from
Yeah,
being
she's
this
shapeshifter.
Maiar. Yeah, yeah. So their interpretation is that she is a Maiar. So it's interesting. But
True enough,
again,
but
she is. I think Tolkien would have loved people talking about this because he would have been like, nah, I never thought about it. He probably would have been like, yeah, I was into C. Lewis's stuff or something. He's like, I just wanted this unnamed shadowy figure. She's just from the void. That's it. There is no explanation.
well, I guess one reason why Melkor would fear her is if he knows to love and fear the shadow, that she's also kind of like that essence of that fear.
She is the essence of the shadow. Yeah, and
Yeah,
the explanation for her death is fascinating. She eats herself to death. So that's
Yeah, it's
another
supposed to be
biblical
the
thing there.
last, that
Yeah.
last, or for the wand of the Silmarils, right?